The air in the dungeon was thick, heavy with the scent of stagnant water and an underlying dread. The crystal stalactites that usually bathed the 18th floor in a serene, artificial sunlight were dimmed, casting long, menacing shadows across the cavern. "Master Bell, this isn't right," Lily whispered, her body shaking, her small hands gripping her supporter backpack so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Meanwhile, Welf would draw his greatsword, his eyes scanning the empty tents, the abandoned hotels, and empty market stalls. A ghost town. Reveria? It's completely empty. No bodies, no blood. Just gone. It's even worse than the guild said it was. Welcome back, everyone, to level 10 for What If Bell Cranel had the system from solo leveling. If you're new here, make sure to go check out the playlist in the description to catch up on Bell's journey from being an abandoned supporter for the Soma Familia all the way to his rise as the Shadow Monarch. If you're already caught up, then you know what to do. Hit all those shiny, fun buttons down below, and let's get right back into the story. Bell Cranel. His crimson eyes would narrow, his senses flaring. The guild had issued an emergency, high-priority quest directly to the Cranel Famila. Ais Wallenstein, the Sword Princess, along with a top-tier Loki Familia expedition team, had vanished in the lower floors, completely failing to make it back on time as they always had before. "Everyone keep your guard up," Bell ordered, his voice echoing slightly in the eerie silence. "Whatever cleared out a safe zone of seasoned adventurers isn't something we want catching us by surprise." Directly at his side, Essel gripped her newly forged blade, while the massive armored form of Egris the Blood-Red, the commander, would form at Bell's side, his shadow, his cape billowing without wind. The entire party would search through looking for any survivors, but they found no clues in Rivera. The party continued descending further, breaching down to the water capital of the lower floors, the 25th and 27th levels. Here, the dungeon was submerged in a labyrinth of waterfalls and deep blue lakes, but for Bell, whose army now numbered in the hundreds, it was just any other slaughterhouse, regardless of the beauty. "Tusk, Titan, clear the path," their lord commanded. The High Orc shaman, Tusk, his shadow would raise his staff, a hymn of fire evaporating massive swaths of water and incinerating serpentine monsters that would dare to approach their army. Titan, the reanimated Black Goliath, would wade through the subterranean sea, crushing anything that swam too close. Suddenly, though, the dungeon itself would quake, water erupting violently, bursting into a geyser that splashed against the cavern ceiling. Emerging from the watery depths, the floor boss, Amphisbaina, a colossal two-headed water dragon with scales as tough as adamantite. The creature would roar, preparing to unleash a torrent of blue cursed flames. But before Bell could even call upon his daggers, a blur of black and red would shoot down from the ceiling like a meteorite. Crunch! The sound was sickening. The party froze. Welf, Lily, Bell, Ais, even his shadow soldiers all standing stock still as they watched a monster. Humanoid, yet distinctly an insect. It would have razor-sharp mandibles and 4 eyes, chillingly human-like. The beast would land squarely into Amphisbaina's back. With a screech that sounded like metal grinding against metal, the ant monster would dig its claws into the dragon's adamantite hide. It didn't pierce them. It gripped them, and with a horrifying, raw, physical strength, it ripped the dragon's left head clean off of its neck. Blood raining down like a monsoon, burning as the blood of the dragon would turn the water of the lake a deep crimson. The floor boss thrashed in agony, the ant moving into a blur, its jaws extending as it began devouring the magic stone, ripping through the flesh of the floor boss monster. The entire boss dissolving into ash. What the hell is that?" Wolf would stammer, taking a step back. He'd feel sweat pouring down his face. He gripped his magic sword. He had made several of them in preparation for this quest, but would they even be any use against this thing? The Ant King would turn its gaze toward Belle's party, wiping the dragon blood with a click from its mouth. Then it would shriek. Scrah! The sound was filled with pure malice that seemed to command the dungeon around them. The walls, the ceiling, the water itself vibrated as the sound of hundreds of massive, heavily armored ants poured out from entrances within the dungeon, surrounding the entire Familia and Belle's shadow army. Belle would stand forward, pulling out Kasuka's Venom Fang and the Night Killer from his inventory. Egress, protect Lillian Wealth. Essel, fight at my side. But the Ant King wouldn't wait for the King of the Humans to give his orders. It would vanish. Belle's enhanced senses barely tracking the monster's movement. He'd parry a strike that felt like it was meant to destroy a mountain. The impact shattered the ground beneath Belle's boots, as the earth itself seemed to shake. The speed, the strength. This monster's easily on the level of a high level 6. No, level 7? Belle thought, gritting his teeth, pushing it back. The two would clash in a high-speed blur of close combat, sparks flying as Belle's daggers met the hardened claws and mandibles of the Ant King. But then, the monster did something that froze the blood in Belle's veins. The Ant King would lurch back, taking a breath, and then it spoke. Not in a screech or even a monster-like tone, but in a soft, melodic, and feminine-like voice. Awaken, Tempest. A violent aura of green magical wind would erupt around the insect. This is Ariel, the signature enhancement spell. That's Ais's. Belle's eyes would widen in horror. Hey, Bug, where did you learn that magic? The Ant King cocked its head, its mandibles clicking, as it spoke again once in Ais's voice. Delicious, strong meat. A surge of blind rage would consume Belle. He activated his skill, Dash, closing the distance between himself and the King of Ants immediately. But the Ant King, who was now enhanced by Ariel, was just as fast. Belle would throw a punch charged with Argonaut, the ant catching the blow as the shockwave would blow the water around them, parting the lake as the two would descend to the lake floor below, the water getting pushed back from the shockwave. Just as the Ant King was prepared to impale Belle with its free claw, a barrage of glowing green energy would rain down from above, and it wasn't Ariel. With a bit of hope, he looked up, Belle hoping that it was her, Ais, but it was not the Sword Princess. Luminous wind! Explosions would rock the cavern, hitting the Ant King and shaking him off of Belle. The girl would leap down, landing gracefully at his side. Next to Belle was an elf girl in a green leaf-like cloak, her face hidden behind a mask, but Belle would recognize her instantly from her aura alone. Ryu, what are you doing here? Focus, Mr. Cranel, Ryu would yell, her wooden sword drawn. Her voice was ruptured with tension. That monster, it's a mutation from the deep floors. It's able to devour its prey and absorb all of their power and even their memories. Belle would quickly regroup, his mind now racing. How do you know that? Have you fought this before? Because of what it's hunting, Ryu said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hatred. The Juggernaut? Her voice now swallowing. Her eyes would show tears of emotion, remembering the past that had so long despaired her. The monster that had wiped out my Familia, my Astrea Familia years ago. Ryu would narrow her eyes. I was exploring the dungeon, but I heard rumors of Evilus, and them being back inside, after Gnosis was discovered. They spawned it. The Juggernaut! The monster that wiped out my entire family. All of the Astrea Familia. But this monster intercepted it. I only escaped the carnage thanks to the help of Ais Wallenstein and members of the Loki Familia. But the two of them have been tearing the entire dungeon apart. The deep floor's in war between this Ant King and the Juggernaut fighting for dominance. It must have ambushed the Loki Familia on its way up. Bell would grunt. It used Ais's magic. His voice dropping, a purple aura bleeding out into the air. It said that it devoured her. Ryu turned to him, feeling the chilling presence of the Shadow Monarch's intent. Then we need to kill it, now. With Ryu supporting him, Bell would go all out, calling upon his shadows. Tusk! Use the Hymn of Dragonfire! Burn this damn bug away! The ginormous orc would blast a massive beam of energy, using the Orb of Avarice, forcing the Ant King to dodge into the air. But that was exactly what Bell was waiting for. Ruler's Hand. He'd slam the Ant King back down to the ground, ripping it into the bedrock. As the monster tried to recover, Bell would activate Fatal Strike, driving his daggers deep into the joints of the carapace of the monster. The Ant King would begin to shriek in Ais Wallenstein's voice one last time. No, please, please don't kill me, please. Before Bell charged his fist, full with the power of Argonaut, burning it away as he'd scream, Firebolt. He'd rip his flame-covered fist full with white energy and power, releasing it into the creature's head, incinerating its upper half. The system would hum to life.
You have defeated a dungeon boss. You have leveled up. You have leveled up.
The cavern now fell silent, save for the sound of splashing water from the waterfalls churning the blood of Amphisbaina. Bell stood over the charred remains of the Ant King, his chest heaving. He would turn to Ryu. This is for the sake of finding them, if there's any way. I hope you'll forget what you're seeing now. He'd reach his hand out, his eyes glowing with an eerie purple light. Onwards! The shadow cast from the blue light of the cavern onto the corpse would begin to bubble, splashing as if though it was part of the lake itself, as a massive pitch-black ant would erupt from it, its eyes glowing blue, and a crown-like crest of shadows rising from the ground. It immediately fell to one knee, bowing its head to Bell. Bell would turn his eyes upon the creature he had now taken as his soldier. You can speak, right? What happened to the gold-haired human whose magic you stole? Beru, the Shadow Commander, would ask kindly for a name. My king. I devoured her right arm. Her magic and her taste were truly delicious, but the golden human escaped me. She fell deeper into the abyss, fleeing the despair of her life. She was though alive, missing an arm, but alive. Bell would have a sigh of relief. Fine. Oh, and your name? Let's go with Beru. Now, take me to the Juggernaut. And then, to her. Find her. He'd use Onwards once again, summoning all of the ant soldiers that had been under Beru's command and bringing them under his thrall. Beru would lead the Cranel Famila, now almost tripled in size once again, down to the 37th floor, Ryu watching in amazement as Bell commanded this monster. The rest of the way down could be considered easy in comparison, making it down to the 37th floor in a split. The White Palace. It was a wasteland of shattered white courts and devastation. And there, lying now dead and ripped to pieces by the Ant King's previous battle, was the terrifying skeletal form of the Juggernaut, a monster that could deflect magic and could kill with blinding speed. Bell didn't even hesitate. Onwards! Ryu's eyes would fill with panic. No, you can't! Don't, please, please don't! But the Juggernaut would rise, its skeletal frame now wrapped in shifting shadows, laying its head down as a horse to its knight, pledging loyalty to the Shadow Monarch. But Bell's eyes would narrow. Something felt wrong. Ryu's legs would shake, as Bell would hear something he had not heard before.
Shadow extraction has failed. The soul of the target, Juggernaut, is far too deteriorated.
Bell's eyes would widen. Deteriorated, huh? He put his thumb on his chin. I'd seen something like this before, too. In the Demon King's castle. I couldn't use the demons as soldiers. Maybe this is the same thing. While Review would hyperventilate, begging Belle to not have this creature kept, Belle would turn, taking to one knee. It's alright, Ryu, it won't stay long. I just want to help me find Ais. She'd nod, trusting him, as Belle would force the Juggernaut and Beru to walk side by side, ordering them to help him find Ais Wallenstein. Meanwhile, deep in the 37th floor, Ais Wallenstein was dying. Her golden hair was matted with blood. Her right arm was ragged, a cauterized stump. She had wrapped it tightly with her shredded cloak. With her remaining arm, she dragged two unconscious bodies, Beite and Tiona. The rest of the expedition team were gone, swallowed by the endless tide of ants. Ais would stumble, falling to her knees on the cold white quartz. She'd cough blood as her vision was beginning to fade to black. But then, she'd begin to hear them. She'd begin to hear them again. Chittering sounds, the clicking of mandibles. Hundreds of ant soldiers crawling out of crevices. They must have smelled her blood. Is this it? Ais thought, her golden eyes beginning to lose their light. Father, Mother, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to become strong enough. The ants lunged. Ais closed her eyes, her energy leaving her as she was about to accept her end. But the pain never came. Instead, she'd hear the sound of blades cutting through carapace, echoing through the entire hall. Ais forced her eyelids back open. Standing around her were ants, but they were pitch black, radiating a blue and ghostly light. They were mercilessly slaughtering the living ants that had been about to attack them. And now, stepping through the carnage, was a sight that she could not have been more thankful to see. His white hair glowing in the dim light of the dungeon, making him appear even more pale than on the surface. There stood Belle Cranel. Ais's face would turn to a slight smile as her remaining strength vanished. She'd pitch forward, about to hit her head on the ground, but Belle would catch her gently. You're safe now, Belle would whisper. He'd call forth the system shop, instantly purchasing the highest tier healing potions and pouring them down her throat, doing the same for Bere and Tiona. However, that wasn't all. Immediately after taking out the rest of those ant monsters, Belle would hear the system notification.
You have reached level 100. Item acquired. The Black Heart.
Belle would ignore it for now. Holding the unconscious sword princess, he turned back to Essel, who watched him with a soft, understanding gaze. Essel. His voice was firm. Once we get back to the surface, and they can recover, I'm going to finish it. I need to get stronger. It's time I defeat the Demon King. It would take an entire day to return back to the surface. Within that time, the shadow of the Juggernaut would wither away, turning to dust. Beru would simply chuckle. Of course it wasn't as good of a soldier as me, not to my king. Egress would turn, eyeing the monster. Belle could practically hear them bickering, like, oh yeah, you think you're that impressive? You caused my master quite a bit of grief too, you know. After the last remains of the Juggernaut would wither away, Ryu would finally be at ease again, and a day of travel would pass. Now back on the surface, they'd be inside the twilight-lit infirmary of the Loki Familia estate. Ais would slowly blink herself awake. The pain was gone. As her eyes now shifted to her right shoulder, her arm, it was perfectly intact. Beru had used healing magic to fix Ais's arm inside the dungeon on their way back. He had used healing magic on top of Belle's potions to completely fix the three adventurers, upon his king's request. Though she wouldn't know this. Ais would turn her head to the left, seeing a silhouette sitting by the window, with white hair and a heroic aura surrounding him. Father. Her throat was dry. She murmured, though quite raspily. Not quite, Miss Wallenstein. though I'm glad to see you're awake. Ais would sit up, her cheeks flushing a rare deep crimson, realizing who it was, the memories flooding back, the Ant King, her arm, the shadows, and Belle Cranel saving her. Before she could speak an apology or thank you for everything, the door would slam open, Loki bursting in with tears streaming down the god's face, launching herself at Ais and beginning to turn her face in between her breasts. "Ais, my precious little Ais, you're alive!" Loki turning and squinting her eyes toward Belle. She'd point an accusatory finger at him. "And you, the orphan! I don't know what kind of overpowered, rule-breaking thing you've done now, but don't think this means you get to steal my Ais away! She's mine!" She'd tie in her arms around her protege. As Ais would try her best to escape the god, she still felt weak. Belle would smirk, raising his hands in a mock surrender. "I wouldn't dream of it, Goddess Loki. I've just brought her home, in accordance with the quest to the Adventurers Guild. Oh, and you can definitely keep the wolf guy too." Bede would growl, wrapped in his bandages in the next bed, though he was still asleep. After a bit more casual banter and back and forth, Belle would bid adieu to Loki and to Ais, who still hadn't had a chance to thank him. Belle would take his leave, walking back through the bustling streets of Arario. The atmosphere had completely shifted. As Belle walked, he could hear civilians and adventurers alike parting the way for him. The crowds would whisper, following him everywhere. "That's him, the orphan. I heard he wiped out a Floor 37 anomaly all solo. The Cranel Famila? They're like a walking myth." Welf and Lily would be at his side, seemingly enjoying the VIP treatment. "You know, Belle," Welf would say, crossing his arms with a grin, "the Goddess Festival's coming up in a few days. Whole city's already putting up decorations, eh? You taking anyone?" He'd elbow Belle in the side. Lily would pout, crossing her arms. "Master Belle is far too busy managing our familia to go on such a frivolous date." Belle would tune them out immediately upon hearing the word date, looking at the banners being strung across the stone buildings. The Goddess Festival, huh? A festival for harvest, love, and gratitude. His mind, for some reason, would immediately turn to the girl with silver hair and a mischievous smile, who plagued herself around his house, Seer. She had visited the mansion every single day, ever since he had gone it after the Apollo Familia had given it to him in their war game. She'd helped Vine, bringing food, making lunches for him, and waited for him at all hours. The two of them had really been through a lot, huh? I've been so caught up leveling, fighting, and surviving down there. I owe Seer more than I can say. Belle would think about that night, the night when he had first recovered after the double dungeon, and how he had fallen unconscious after his war against the red centipedes. How she had taken him in, and even given him a bed to sleep in, and she's been stuck at his side ever since. That evening, Belle would be the one to visit her instead. Belle visiting the hostess of fertility. Belle would walk right up to her from behind as she was wiping a table. Seer? Belle would say, his voice unusually steady. The Goddess Festival? I want you to go with me. Seer would drop the rag she was carrying, her silver eyes widening as a genuine blush would begin to spread across her cheeks. For the first time, she looked completely off guard. But, Belle? You're asking me? Really? I owe you, Belle would say softly. For everything. The day of the festival would arrive much sooner than either could anticipate. A burst of color and music. It was like the entire city of Arario was alive and vibrant. Belle and Seer walked through the streets, sharing food, laughing, and enjoying the peace of town. For once, feeling like a normal couple. Seer would begin to talk to Belle, explaining the lore of the festival. The story of a spirit and a princess and a knight. A story of forbidden love and destiny. As the sun would begin to set, casting a golden hue over the city, they found themselves at the old chapel on the edge of town. The stained glass would capture the golden light, the fading light turning the stone floors into a myriad of colors. Belle would stop, turning to Seer. The bustling festival now felt miles away. even though they were just in a chapel close to the center of town. He looked at her, really looked at her, and he thought about his grandfather's stories, about how his grandfather had told him the real reason to become an adventurer.
You should go into a dungeon and save a girl. That's the real way to get a good one, huh? Don't you get it, kid?
He could practically hear him now. He'd chuckle. But that's not what happened at all. Instead, she helped me. No, she saved me. He thought about his grandfather's story, about finding someone worth protecting. Seer. Val began to speak, his voice dropping into a low tone, speaking earnestly. Since I came to Aurario, my life has always been chaos. Blood, death, monsters, and I was abused for so long. No one wanted me. I couldn't do anything. I was really useless. He began to smile. But then one day, I started to notice you were there. Every time I came back from the brink, you were there. You gave me a place to belong, and made me feel like I was at home, before I even knew I needed one. Seer's breath would catch. She looked up at him. Her usual teasing demeanor had completely vanished. Normally she'd say something like, "Oh, what, are you going to propose to me?" Or something cliche, but she could tell that Belle was being serious. Belle's hands would tremble as he reached toward his coat jacket pocket. He thought about everything. He knew that she had her own secrets. He had known she was a goddess for a long time, but he didn't care. His past self couldn't have even dreamed of feeling this way about someone so divine, something that he had previously worshipped. But he couldn't imagine life without her now. How could he? He needed her by his side. Belle would procure from his pocket a beautiful S-rank item, an accessory with a silver ring and a blue gemstone, perfectly sized for her. He had convinced Egress to help get her measurements in the kitchen when they were working together, claiming that he needed it for getting new knives and cutlery. Seer, I love you, and I want you to be with me for the rest of my life. He'd smile. I can't imagine a world without you. Please stay by my side. The silence would stretch on for eons, her eyes filling with tears. Her hands would tremble, reaching up as she cupped his face, the facade cracking. She felt herself, the real goddess of beauty, Freya, hidden beneath what was the guise of a tavern girl. She had originally started this facade of seer, as a way to overcome her boredom, as a way of just living life and enjoying more than being worshipped as a god. She hadn't realized that this had become who she was, that she was spending more time as seer than Freya, and she preferred it that way. She gazed at the boy's soul bared before her. Yes, she whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. Yes, Belle. She pulled him in, kissing him deeply under the stained glass light, and for a moment, everything was perfect, until the world shattered around them.
System alert. Fatal hostility detected. Warning, warning. Overwhelming force approaching. Warning, warning.
Belle's eyes would snap open. He didn't even have time to summon a dagger. Ah! Seer would scream as a massive hand violently yanked her away from him. Simultaneously, a burst of agonizing pain would erupt in Belle's chest. A boot, moving faster than the speed of sound, slammed into him like a hammer. Wham! The force of the blow was apocalyptic. Belle was launched backward, crashing through the heavy oak doors of the chapel, blowing through the stone wall of the adjacent building, and skipping across the cobblestone street like a skipped stone on a river, until he slammed into the fountain, completely destroying it as water would spray over his body. Belle would cough a geyser of blood. His vision swam before him. Through the dust and debris, a towering figure approached. Otarul, the king. A level 7 and the strongest adventurer in Aurario. His body, though, his presence was completely different from any other adventurer. Belle had sensed this before. It was the same one from the pleasure quarter. The monster. Otaral's body glowed with a fragment of light, glowing golden.
Let go of me!
Seer screamed, thrashing wildly.
I never ordered this! Don't hurt him! Stop!
But the 4 Gulliver brothers, adorned in heavy cloaks lined with magical artifacts, designed to resist charm magic, would completely restrain her, tying her up and pulling her away. "Forgive me, Lady Freya," Otaral said in his deep voice, a resonant rumble shaking the ground. "But I will not allow such filth to soil you. You belong to the pinnacle of this world, not some stray rabbit who plays in the dark." Bell gritted his teeth as blood forced through the cracks, forcing himself to stand, but a blur of motion appeared on his right. Alan Fromel, the fastest adventurer in the city. He thrust his silver spear directly toward Bell's temple. "Die, trash!" Alan snarled. Suddenly, the shadow beneath Bell would expand violently as Egress and Vanity erupted from the darkness, Egress's greatsword clashing against Alan's spear and a shockwave shattering the windows across the entire district. Bell's eye would twitch. "Go! Safe, Seer!" he roared to his commanders. Before Egress could move, though, a blinding flash of golden light would strike from above. Tusk, towering over the buildings, would raise the Orb of Avarice, casting a hymn of protection, a massive blue shield materializing and absorbing countless lightning bolts. There he was, Hedin, the elf mage standing on a nearby rooftop. But Otarl didn't wait. He closed the distance to Bell instantly, but he didn't draw his greatsword. He simply, using his bare hands, would grab Bell's right arm and with a sickening, visceral tear, would rip it clean from the shoulder. But Bell didn't scream. His eyes went wide as the shock set in. He barely managed to dodge a lethal kick aimed at his head, rolling to the side just in a nick of time as Otaral's foot pulverized the ground where his skull had once been. "You are unworthy," Otaral growled, looking down at the bleeding man. A switch flipped in Bell's mind. The pain vanished, replaced by an absolute freezing darkness. "Unworthy," Bell whispered. Alan, having now moved past Egress, would lunge to Bell again. "You're wide open!" Bell didn't dodge. With his remaining left hand, he caught the tip of Alan's silver spear. The momentum would rip his palm open, but Bell's grip was like a vice. He squeezed, his grip tighter, channeling mana, the unbreakable spear shattering into metallic dust. Before Alan could even process the shock, Bell's fist slammed into his chest. The impact sounded like a cannon firing. Alan was blown backwards, his spine audibly shattering as he crashed through the stone watchtower of the chapel, which then crashed into dirt, burying the entire building into rubble. Panic engulfed the entire festival as the district was filled with screams, civilians now causing chaos as the inter-guild war begun. "Master Bell!" Essel, who had been patrolling nearby with Welf at the festival, charged into the fray, her eyes blazing purple with her hair of the same color flowing in the wind behind her. She thrust her spear at Otarl. "Foolish," a voice whispered. Hogni, the dark elf swordsman, appeared like a ghost, just like one of Bell's shadows, his cursed blade disarming Essel in a single fluid motion. Otarl reached out, his massive hand wrapping around Essel's throat. He lifted her cleanly off the ground. She began kicking her legs in the air, gasping for breath. Then, the air in Aurario stopped moving. It was as if time itself stood still, holding its breath. Every single member of the Freya Familia, Hedin, Hogni, the Gulliver brothers, and Otarl, felt a sudden paralyzing chill grip their hearts. It wasn't any magic or spell. It was the pure, unfiltered, murderous intent of a monarch. A primal fear of death itself would cover them. Bell would vanish. In the blink of an eye, Hedin would see Bell was already in front of him on the rooftop. The elf tried to raise his staff, but bare-handed, Bel would clamp his fist around it, blood gushing from his palm still, as he crushed the magical wood to splinters. "Firebolt," Bel said coldly. A point-blank attack. Argonaut charged and a blast of blue flames erupted into Hedine's face, sending the charred elf plummeting from the rooftop and crashing into the street below, as the flames continued to lick over his body. In the next millisecond, Bel had returned to be back in front of Otaro. He had tightened his grip on Essel's neck, prepared to snap it, but before he could even attack her, a hand clamped around his thick wrist. Bel, bleeding out from a missing arm, glared at the king of the city of adventurers, and he squeezed. He squeezed tighter and tighter. Otaro's eyes widened slightly, in shock, and then wider as the bones in his forearm began to creak, his skin, compared to adamantite itself, turning a dark, bruised purple under Bel's crushing grip. "Let her go." His eyes would glow amethyst as Bel spoke. "Now." Otaro scowled, but the immense pressure on his wrist forced his fingers open as Essel dropped to the ground, coughing violently. Bel would take a step back, aura flaring wildly, as he yelled in his mind, "Full recovery." The blue light of the system would wash over Bel. The gaping wound, which was still leaking blood like a fountain, began to sizzle as muscle, bone, and skin rapidly weaved together until his right arm had been completely restored. He reached into the void of his inventory and withdrew the Night Killer. Otaro tightened his grip on his other hand, holding his black greatsword. The two warriors locking eyes, as the sheer pressure of their auras was cracking the ground around them, the world bending in like a point of gravitational pull in a black hole. "Enough!" a voice echoed across the square. It was Freya, the goddess of the Freya Familia. Bel's bloodlust soared even higher. "This bitch! She stole Seer from me, attacked me during the middle of this place filled with people, and she's calling for enough." Bel's soldiers would begin to creak, having felt his rage burning, brighter than it had ever been before, more than when he had gone to save Vine, more than in the middle of the Apollo war game. After all, absolute love bleeds into absolute hatred. As Freya stepped forward, flanked by terrified guild representatives, they would now speak out in a squeaky voice.
The Freya Familia declares a war game on the Cranel Familia."
With this, Freya would grin, masking her terror at Bel's aura perfectly. Inside, she was shaking in horror, fear, and something else. Her emotions felt immense sorrow. Was this her goddess? Was she really this upset about being taken back from this man who had dragged her into danger and ruined her over and over again? She'd swallow. "In 2 weeks' time, we shall have our war. Cease this combat immediately. On my name as the goddess Freya." The guild reps would beg Bel, "Please, Mr. Cranel, this district is already destroyed. If you fight the king here, thousands, if not more, will die." Bel turned his eyes for once. His eyes which had hardened into crimson-red flames, burning at the pits of hell. He gazed at the ruined streets, the terrified festival-goers, all huddled together in the distance, horrified at the loss of life. And Seer, weeping as she was dragged away. He gritted his teeth so hard he tasted blood. He lowered his dagger slowly. "Igris, Tusk, Barrow, stand down." The Shadow Army would melt back into darkness as Otaro sheathed his sword, though his golden eyes never left Bel. 2 weeks, orphan. I'll bury you." Bel's face turned cold. "There won't be anything left for them to bury you, Otaro. You'll serve me for all of eternity and lick my boots like a fucking dog." 2 days would pass. The Demon King's castle, floor 100. Bel stood before the massive throne room doors, his face a mask of cold determination. "That's right. I need more power. I'm going to crush that bastard in front of Aurario." "Otaro," Essel, you ready? Bell would ask. Essel, be wielding a new spear, a magic spear Welf had forged, would nod firmly. I'm with you, my king. They pushed the doors open, accessing the 100th floor with the final pass, the massive open area of Baran, the Demon King, and his title, the Monarch of White Flames. Bell would raise an eyebrow. What, are you a fan or something? Flames are sort of my thing. A colossal demon wielding 2 jagged swords. He was riding atop a massive undead wyvern. His magic power thrummed throughout the entire floor. This was Baran, the Demon King. Bell would smile as the Demon King bellowed out, roaring as an army of demons would come forth. Bell would simply smirk, activating the new skill he'd obtained right after the Freya incident. Skill: Monarch's Domain. The shadows at his feet expanded, consuming the flames. His shadow army emerged, their auras turning from a dark blue to purple, and being significantly amplified by this domain. Within this space, his soldiers were all boosted by his power, including his already powerful soldiers like Egress, Beru, Titan, Tusk. The battle would be legendary, white flames clashing against blue lightning and shadow. As Tusk blasted demons out of the sky, Beru and Egress would now bear down on Baran in close quarters, while Essel provided flawless support from the back. Bell, moving at speeds breaking the sound barrier, would engage Baran directly, hitting him with his blades directly on his neck. He danced through the white flames, daggers parrying the massive blades adorned in the white flame monarch's hand. With a final roaring clash, Bell charged Argonaut into Kasika's Venom Fang, improving its abilities, paralysis, poison, and then covering the blade in flame, using Firebolt. With a final roar, he turned his blade into a longsword, severing Baran's arms before driving Nightkiller through the Demon King's heart.
You have defeated the Demon King, Baran. Item acquired, Demon King's daggers. Item acquired, Demon King's longsword. Equipment acquired, Demon King's set. Quest completed. You have acquired the materials to craft the Elixir of Life. New skill acquired, Shadow Exchange.
Bell stood heaving over the destroyed Demon King, victorious over the boss that had swamped misery over the Demon King's castle for so long. Essa would have tears in her eyes. Finally, her family could be free. He turned to the slain wyvern. Onwards. Bell would scratch under the dragon's chin. As the wyvern arose, shedding its decaying flesh for a coat of shadow. Kaisel. Kaisel will be your name. The shadow wyvern, bowing its massive head to Bell. Essa would run up, smiling for the first time in days since Seer had been abducted. You did it, Bell. We did it. We cleared the castle. Bell would nod, equipping the Demon King's daggers. He felt a surge of power course through them, looking at their insane stats. Now, he was ready for the war game. I'm going to get Seer back, no matter what. But then, something strange would happen. The system alarm would blare again, painting his screens with an ominous red.
Urgent quest alert. Return to the Karthanon Temple. If you do not arrive at the gate within 24 hours, your heart will stop.
Bell stared at the screen. The Karthanon Temple. The name would echo in his mind. This place was where it all started. The statues. He'd see his own blood, remembering when the spear had pierced him clean through. He thought his hand was shaking. No, he was different now. This emotion was not fear. Was this another opportunity to get stronger? Yeah. I'll defeat this quest, and then I'll go for Otaro next. Bell was now a level 115. His eyes would glow. With 10 days left until the war game against the Freya Familia, Bell would turn his eyes upon the Tower of Babel, where beneath its surface, the double dungeon, the Karthanon Temple, awaited him. And cut! Wow, okay, that was pretty intense. But if you guys want to see the final showdown between Bell and the Architect, as well as the Freya war game, you know what you need to do. Make sure to go and hit all those fun buttons. And I want to thank all of my members. So thank you guys, Toku796, Tyler J. Waddle, and Jadam Graham for being variants. If you want to join a variant, it's 99 cents a month, and you get early access to videos like this. And once again, thank you to Sith Lord for being a world breaker, which makes him the top supporter. Appreciate all of you guys, and thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you guys are looking forward to the final part of Bell leveling, well, you won't have to wait long. The full story will be dropping shortly, within the next week. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and I hope you enjoyed level 10 for What If Bell Cranel had solo leveling.